Following President Trump's tariff announcement this week, Alberta Premier Daniel Smith described it as a big win for Alberta and Canada. What are your thoughts on that assessment?
I think with respect to the reciprocal tariffs, which is what the Americans are calling the series of tariffs announcements this week, Canada got the best of a series of bad deals. That's true. We did get a better deal than any other country, but we also have the reality that in place are tariffs that came from the unjustified tariffs that came from the fentanyl issue, an issue that we have put enormous efforts into addressing on both sides of the border, tariffs that are in place on aluminum and steel, tariffs that entered into force as of yesterday in our automobile sector. All of those in contravention of our trade agreements with the United States. So I don't think this is time for celebration. It's a time to fight those tariffs.
Okay, time to fight, and we've started with the auto tariffs that we are imposing on them. Tom Mulcair is on the line. Our feature is brought to you by Guaranteed Industries. Excellent combination along with Can Air for all your heating and air conditioning needs. So give them a call. Guaranteed is at 514-342-3400 or online, guaranteedindustries.com. Tom, you heard what Mark Carney just had to say with respect to the tariffs. We got a better deal, which is true, than pretty much any other country. I will point out, by the way, I don't know if you've seen this, Russia, 0% tariffs. Did you catch that?
Yes, I did.
Nothing. So we got as good a deal as Russia or Mexico, apparently.
It's Donald J's best friend.
Yeah, there you
they
go.
Must have so much on them, we can only guess.
I guess.
What's in that dossier.
So what do you make of what Mark Carney said with respect to, and I think he said this yesterday, we make the best of a bad situation, because it is a bad situation?
I think that that's a good way to sum it up. I mean, I think that the personal contact that Carney had with Trump probably allowed Carney to explain some of the madness of what Trump was proposing and what it would cause in terms of disruption of supply chains here in Canada, and of course in the U.S. and Mexico as well. I think some of that was already very much understood by the smart people around him. But, you know, there's only so much you can do to excuse the Howard Lutnicks of this world, because he is a really smart guy. But he was also the buffoon standing there with the little charts to show that Thailand was going to pay this much and Cambodia that much. But Donald J. Trump couldn't find Cambodia on a map. Okay, it's just like, let's not kid ourselves. These guys are making this stuff as they go along, making it up as they go along. It's not true that those countries are charging anything near what they were alleging. It's just pure Trump. It's stuff that's made up. But it's having a devastating effect on world markets, but in particular on American markets. Trump says it's because he's a genius, a stable genius, and that he's the only person on the planet who is right and everybody else is wrong. Unfortunately for him, the one thing that he can't BS completely is the stock market. That's left up to individual investors and institutional investors. And they're all saying, okay, it's time to sell some of this stuff because it's only going to be going down.
By the way, Tom, have you seen this story? You know, when you mentioned the board that Howard Lutnick was handing over to Donald Trump, going down that list, right? The understanding at the time was countries have tariffs against the U.S., and the U.S. will take half of those tariffs and impose them on those countries, all to do with what they're being tariffed. We have subsequently found out that they're not, in fact, tariffs at all.
At all, no.
The White House released a mathematical formula for how this was done, and which boils down, I'm going to read from what it says. Their mathematical formula has them taking the trade deficit for the U.S. in goods with a particular country, dividing that by the total goods imported from that country, and then dividing that number by 2.
Right.
It's got nothing to do with tariffs.
No, it's as I say, it's pure Trump. It's pure BS. It's just something that he made up. Look, this is the same guy who says that he is subsidizing Canada to the tune of $200 billion a year because we export oil and gas to the tune of, wait for it, $200 billion a year. And we sell it to them dirt cheap compared to world markets because a lot of it is landlocked. It can get out the West Coast, but it can't get out the East Coast. So it all heads down to the Gulf of Mexico.
America.
Which is still, no.
Sorry.
and that's where they have the big refineries that can handle the heavy oil from the tar sands. And this is the game that gets played. He lies so outrageously. It just took me 4 or 5 sentences to explain why that is a lie. But you don't get 4 or 5 sentences in the world of politics or in the world of social media. You get somebody with a MAGA hat. But the words that he used when he was making this presentation the other day were just outrageous. He said, this is because of foreign scavengers taking advantage of the United States. Yeah. It was outrageous. It was inherently hateful, if not racist. And this is the view that he has of the world. He's a dummy. And he keeps saying things that, it's taken about 72 hours for every commentator, even his favorite ones, like Fox News and the Wall Street Journal and others saying, okay, enough already. You're crazy. This doesn't make any sense. Even if your plan did produce any results, it wouldn't be until 5 or 10 years down the road, and they would put us backwards. The United States is the richest country in the world for one reason. It attracts the top talent from around the world. If you're the top student in physics in Casablanca, Morocco, you don't want to go to France to study physics. You want to go to MIT in the United States. They always were able to draw in the best brains, and then you had companies like Google and Apple and Facebook, Meta, out there drawing in these people, the best of the best from around the world, and that's how they stayed ahead. You can't create new wealth without creating new knowledge, and the United States was always ahead in terms of creating new knowledge. Donald Trump is going to bomb the United States back to the 1800s, which he claims was the Gilded Age, the Golden Age. What he is doing is trying to make it a world where the very rich who have some cash can buy up all the stuff that's going to be landing on the market as people can't pay their mortgages anymore. That's what Donald Trump is about, trying to help the rich get richer and everybody else just get poorer.
Look, I don't know. For people who don't even follow this necessarily, but they've heard about markets crashing. So as bad as things were yesterday, for people who have not heard, they were actually even worse today, if you can believe it. The Dow was down 2,200 points. The TSX today was down another 1,300 points, and on and on and on. Now, at some point, Donald Trump can say till he's blue in the face, well, I'm not really paying attention to markets. But at some point, if things don't start coming back, you'd have to imagine something's going to have to change.
He'll never admit that he's wrong. But this is an observation that was made by Scott Reed, somebody that I work with quite a bit in radio and TV. And he said, it's the standard operating procedure for Trump. He does something that crazy, and then when he has to walk it back, he declares victory. This is what he's going to have to do here. Today, he said word for word, I will not back down from my policy, which is, of course, the proof that he will do just that. But he will declare victory first. He will say that I have liberated America, everything's going well, the money's flowing in. The United States is technically insolvent. They can't pay their bills regularly as they come due. They go from crisis to crisis in terms of budget. They can't afford all the stuff that they were already paying for, and it's not the lunatic with the chainsaw, Elon Musk, that change anything about that. It's unbelievable to think that Elon Musk and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. have anything to do with running the greatest country in the world, but they do. So as I think Carney is always trying to give us a dose of reality therapy, this is actually happening. We're watching the guy who went on the tube and said, I want to make Canada the 51st state, and I'm going to attack it economically. And this is what actually happened. The President of the United States has done that in the first few weeks of his second mandate, which is unbelievable that this loon was able to get a second mandate. Yeah. But as Carney says, deal with it because it's reality.
All right, let me move on to talk about what's going on here in our sort of election race, if you will. On the campaign trail today, you had Mark Carney announcing he would fund the CBC to the tune of another $150 million, which obviously separates him from Pierre Poilievre. By the way, Tom, is Pierre Poilievre still talking about abolishing the CBC, or is he given that up?
Depends on the day of the week. He'll tell his base that he wants to abolish the CBC, but then he'll say in Quebec that he's going to keep Radio-Canada, but how do you do that isn't exactly clear. I also think that it's a mistake for Mr. Carney to be promising another $150 million when you've got things like CTV and TVA, the private networks that are suffering so terribly because of the loss of ad revenue. I think that there has to be a better balance there. And look, let's not kid ourselves. It's not because both of us work for CTV that we can't look at the numbers. Already with a $1.4 billion subsidy of taxpayers' money, our state television, the CBC, is unfortunately in a situation where nobody watches it anymore. Nobody watches the nightly news on CBC. Nobody cares. And I was looking at some numbers the other day. I do an afternoon show on TVA. It's called La Joute. I do it once a week. Now I do the night show a couple of times more. That show in the afternoon from 4 to 5 on TVA has more viewers than the nightly news nationally across Canada on CBC. And it's a small market because for most people in Quebec, depending on where you are, you have to actually order it up on cable. Mm-hmm. So how is it possible that we're still saying, they need another $150 million because they've been giving each other bonuses, and their bonuses might not be as big. They don't deserve bonuses. They do deserve to be fired. And CBC is mediocre. That's my honest view. And it's not because I work with CTV. It's because I know and I watch and I learned and I look at the numbers, and CBC is not a good product. So they can convince themselves that it's doing a great job of keeping the country together. And you know what? On the radio, I think it does have that role. On TV, in today's market, in today's world, it doesn't have that role. So throwing another $150 million down that tip doesn't make any sense.
Hey, can I just ask what you thought? I know Jagmeet Singh was out there today talking again about, taxes and whatever.
Whatever.
Tax havens, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
What do you make of this whole Brookfield thing with those, what did he say, three of the four Brookfield offices, whatever, in Bermuda above a bike shop? I mean, how long is this going to keep, dogging, do you think, Mark Carney in this campaign?
I don't think it dogs him at all. And if the government of Canada or any other place wanted to change that, the Conservatives could have done it when they were in power, but they didn't. And the Liberals were in power for 10 years and they could have changed it and they didn't. The issue of tax havens and the use by companies that use it to avoid paying their fair share is a real issue. But I've never seen any party aspiring to power that was serious about talking about it. I think that Singh is smart to at least remind people that it's an issue. But we both know that the NDP is in single digits right now because this has become a two-way race. And people have already, pushed back saying, well, in Quebec it's a three-way race, which is not untrue. But it's a three-way race with one horse so far in the front, the second and third place, who are the Bloc and the Conservatives, who are basically neck and neck, 20 points behind Mark Carney's Liberals. Look, I go to the country, I live in the country, I see the riding up here, rock solid Bloc riding that is probably going to go Liberal. It's called Pays d'en haut. And the local mayor, one of the local mayors anyway, from Morin Heights, a guy named Tim Watchorn, threw his hat in the ring for the Libs. As far as I can see, has a very good chance of winning this thing. If you were to superimpose, because it's a brand new riding, the votes from the last election, area by area, the Bloc had 50% of the vote, the Liberals had 25% of the vote, and it looks like the Libs are going to win this thing. So it just shows that the world of politics in Quebec, like the rest of the country, has been turned upside down. By the way, Poilievre deserves credit for his position today on intimate partner violence. Very gutsy, very clear. He deserves kudos. He deserves sincere congratulations for his gutsy statement last night on this leaders' discussion that they had on Radio Can, where they were all appearing with three senior journalists from Radio Can. He was clear as a bell with a personal explanation of why the discriminatory Bill 21 is just so wrong. And he is the only federal politician leading any party who I've ever heard have the guts to say that.
Which leads you to believe that now the other two will be asked about it for sure, and certainly Mark Carney is going to have to weigh in, right?
It's going to be a big thing in the French debate, and everybody's going to be dancing the Macarena. They're all going to be talking with their hands, but Poilievre, at least he's got a clear position.
Fair enough. Tom, just before you go, have you had any dreams about Donald Trump?
Never.
It's the last couple of days I've had. It's the weirdest thing.
Oh, you better change drugs.
Well,
Aaron.
I don't know. You want to hear? Here, this is what my dream was. Go ahead, Brian.
You guys told me stock markets would all go up, but I'm seeing them all getting killed. Which one of you idiots thought this was a good idea? Lutnick, where are you? You're fired.
That was my dream. It's crazy, isn't it?
I don't know if that was AI or the world's best impersonator, but that was very good.
Yeah, my dreams. I've had a couple of these. Tom Mulcair. Tom, have a great weekend.